koan for today is stepping from the top of a pole. Things that are only cool in Zen. All right. Master Sekiso said, "How will you step forward from the top of a 100-foot pole?" Another eminent master of old said, "Even though one who is sitting on the top of a 100-foot pole has entered realization, it is not yet real. He must step forward from the top of the pole and manifest his whole body throughout the world in 10 directions." All right, so he's making the analogy or metaphor for becoming awakened or having enlightenment as being on top of a 100-foot pole, right? It's like the highest heights, right? The very top is like the realization culminating at a height. And so, right, the question is, once we accomplish enlightenment, or not necessarily accomplish, but once we have realization of enlightenment, or realization of oneness and emptiness, what's next, right? What do we do after that? So I'll read through this before I get into my notes. I'll just read through some of the highlights that I have here. What does the top of a 100-foot pole mean? Figuratively, it is a stage of complete emptiness. When you attain self-realization, your eye will be open to the state of consciousness where there is absolutely nothing. The stage is called the Great Death. It is a stage where there is no dualistic opposition, such as subject and object. Anyone who wants to attain the true Zen experience must pass through this stage once. However, this stage is often referred to as the pitfall of emptiness. It becomes a kind of Zen sickness. It is said that even Shakyamuni succumbed to it for 2 or 3 weeks after his enlightenment. Take a step forward from this stage, and you will be able to manifest your whole body throughout the world in 10 directions. That means that you must become completely free from all kinds of attachments. All right, this means you will realize that you are one and alone in and with the whole universe, and that you should be able to do anything in an extremely free and positive way. That is the state of true enlightenment. And so with that in mind, right, stepping off of a 100-foot pole is really, it's moving freely. How can we move freely from the state of enlightenment? Which is tricky, right? That's the hardest part. Like, the hardest part of becoming enlightened is manifesting it in our daily life with our stresses and our struggles and our difficulties and our suffering and our circumstances, relationships, work, right? It's easy to be enlightened at the top of a 100-foot pole, right? It's easy to stay there and just be like, oh, everything's perfect as it is. The hard part is getting fired from your job, having sickness and illness in our families, suffering a variety of the things that we go through, and still being able to see, oh, everything's perfect just as it is, even when it feels horrible. That's the hard part. Or I'm getting, communication, right? Getting along with everybody, being patient, getting triggered, and still knowing, oh, this is all perfect just as it's supposed to be. That's the hard part. All right, so it's about manifesting enlightenment in the world, right? It says even Shakyamuni got stuck in that place of bliss. We experience an awakening And this doesn't have to be like the great awakening of all time. It can be like, oh, I realized I'm not as bad as I thought I was. Or, oh, I realized it's okay to make mistakes, right? These little realizations are awakening. These are the great awakening. It doesn't get better than that. It just may not feel like an overwhelming, just a cataclysm of wokeness. And so, being able to honor that it's the little things, the aha moments, really are awakening. So we realize, we wake up and we go, oh, right? And then there's, of course, the big awakenings where it's like, wow, I realize everything is all connected. Everything is one. I'm one with the universe. These are all in a big way. And that's what they're saying Shakyamuni got stuck in, right? He had his awakening, he had his realization, and he's like, whoa, this is pretty good. I like this. I'm going to stay here, right? And so he's just like in bliss, right? This blissful state of just being like, wow, everything's perfect as it is. I'm going to chill here for a while. So he got stuck there, right? And so this koan is for him too. Shakyamuni Buddha, how will you step forward off of your grand experience of awakening? How will you move beyond that and manifest it in everyday painful and stressful situations? So that was the beginning of his work, was the awakening. And then the rest of the work is how to manifest. So a couple of points I want to make here. One is, don't wait for enlightenment to step off from your 100-foot pole, right? Like I said, it's the little things. It's realizing, oh, if I just say I'm sorry, it can heal so many things, right? That's a huge awakening that may happen in a very small space. So right, have faith in these moments. This koan is about after you become enlightened, right? But what I'm saying here is, don't wait to be enlightened to like start manifesting. How will you manifest today? Like literally taking every step is taking the step off of the 100-foot pole. Every time we push through stress, every time we get up a little earlier than we want to because we're still tired, every time we make a choice to do the right thing for ourselves, these are all stepping off the 100-foot pole from the awakening that we are, right? Which is really our intuition. Our intuition is our awakening. And so if we follow our intuition, we make choices like, this is the right thing to do for me. I should do this. I'm going to do this. I'm going to clean my room even if I don't want to. I'm going to do the laundry. I'm going to say I'm sorry. I'm going to reach out and do a little more volunteer work. I'm going to put myself in front of people in a way that I feel stress or anxiety. Putting ourselves in this on the path is stepping off from the 100-foot pole every day. And I think the big point I wanted to make here is how we step off the 100-foot pole is by being the pole, right? We become the pole. And so once I started thinking about this, I kind of visualized, right, being the pole. How can we be the pole? How do you step off from a 100-foot pole? You be the pole. And so what does that mean? What is that for us? And so I started, as I mentioned, I'm repeating myself regularly now. I had this visualizations, right, of like what that looks like. And I was like, I'm thinking of a totem pole, right? If I'm gonna be the pole, and this is where it was gonna be helpful to have, right, I don't know, can't really see that. Can I invite somebody who's it's easy to get up and kind of like share this? It's these totem poles, right? And these totem poles, it's like, you can get this behind me.
Yeah. There we go. That's better.
Yeah. So these totem poles really are like, they're like heads built on top of a head, right? So if I'm thinking of this linearly, right? Like I'm growing up. I'm putting a head on top of my head, right? Every stage of my life is another head. And so if I look at my life in this linear fashion, right, in terms of I'm making progress and I'm making upwardly mobile progress, right? This head here, kind of near the bottom, that looks feisty.
Whoa. Sorry, that's supposed to be the speaker view. Or the speaker. Sorry.
Right, so like this head down here that's near the bottom that looks feisty is like me as a teenager, right? And then the head that's above that looks a little like, I don't know, more like a clown. And then the head above that looks a little more serious. So I can see these totem poles as a metaphor for my progress, right? All the different stages of my life where I've been making progress upwardly. All right, you can stop sharing that for now. But then at the same time, right, you all, at least some of you, maybe most of you have heard my talk about where you see the spiral going this way, and it looks like a spiral, but then when you turn it around and you face it frontwise, it's a circle, right? So the spiral of life then becomes the circle, and then everything is within the circle. So it's like, here's the relative, and then here's the absolute, where we see everything at once. And so I was thinking, right, that a nice reflection of this is in terms of these trees, right? So if you take a cross cut of a tree, the yellowish one, like for example, to start with, and then it shows us, right? Scientists can study this and break it down, and you see the whole life of the tree or the pole at once, right? Just like the other visual. And they break it down. Here's the first year of growth. Here's the rainy season. Here's the dry season. Here's the scar from the forest fire. It's like all of the struggles and difficulties and growth are all seen at once in this the ring. And so you go on to the next one, which is a little more. It's the back page. Yeah, okay. This is a little more elaborate, right? We're making more like, you look at it closer and deeper and you see, oh, here's the wind, here's the thinning, here's the forest fire, here's the drought, here's the subsequent root damage, here's a tilt. And then, right, you start to break it down. It's like, wow, here's all my scars from all my life, my whole lifetime are all here. I see them all at once, right? This is the pole, right? Being the pole is being all of this at once. And then we'll move on to the next one. Yeah, that one. Right, and this one is like much bigger. These trees are hundreds of years old, right? So we've got the Civil War scars here. We've got the World War I scars here. We got women get the vote here. Great Depression here. So on a big scale, right? This is holding everything in our history is all here. The wars, Woodstock, Cold War, all, you know, from the Constitution to the Cold War to and this is where it's cut down after 250 years, right? That's the layer that it had. Okay. All right, so with all that in mind, right, I was like looking, I was like, you know, which one looks the most like me, right? If I had to be a tree ring, I think this is what I would look like. Yep. Right? There's a huge crack going almost to the middle, right? I have these eye things where my eye was really messed up for many years. It's gotten better now, but I can see that there, right? There's this interesting dualism here. It's like there's two rings to start with. Anyway, if I had to pick a tree ring to be, this would be me, right? Bent and crooked and twisted and a lot of history, a lot of scars, and some big cracks that go almost all the way through, but not always, not completely. It's still whole, right? Okay, so thank you so much for being the presenter. I'm the easel. Yeah. All right, so right, be the pole, right? The poles back in these days were surely trees, right? When it was just, you know, there wasn't really the machinery around to create a pole as we know it today. So it would have been a tree, right? So how do we step off from this? How can I realize all of my scars are all perfect as they are? And then move from that, right? How can I see all of my scars and accept them as perfect? And then move from there. Still repeating myself. And so that's the trick, right? That's the trick for us is to recognize that our awakenings are real. Our intuition is our awakening. That's with us every day, all the time. And that every choice we make is stepping from that place. And so how do we do that? I have a 3-step program. Zoe's used to my 5-step programs. 5 steps to success. The first is to develop presence, right? So I wanted everyone to have a sensation of being on top of this 100-foot pole. I get scared. I have a fear of heights, right? So for me to feel like I'm on top of a 100-foot pole, I start to feel tingly and light-headed, and I'm like, it's a little scary. I can feel that sensation, right? I want us to all kind of, you don't necessarily have to close your eyes, but I want you to visualize, okay, being on top of the pole. There's being on top of the pole, kind of lightheaded, like I'm a little worried I'm gonna fall. But rather than stepping off the pole from a height, I want us to shift that feeling to like feeling all the energy just move down into the ground, right? Feel all of our energy just get really grounded, just dropping into the ground like a tree would, right? So we move from this feeling of sort of being tingly and like on the edge of falling to like really our energy being grounded straight down. And this sensation of being grounded, right? So I'm not feeling tingly like I'm gonna fall. I'm feeling grounded, like I'm not moving. And so this sensation, I want us to feel and try to carry with us through our weeks and years and lifetimes. So it's this feeling of being grounded. And from that perspective, we can realize, right, that this is our mind, right? Our mind is grounded in presence. It's always here, rooted. Even if my body is moving around, right? Our bodies move around, but our mind, our awakening is here, grounded. It never moves, right? That's the pole. That's the point of having a pole, is that it stays there. It doesn't move. And so we can move around. We move around through our days, get into issues and struggles and conflicts and joys, dramas and stresses. And then coming back to this, but my awakening has not moved. My mind has not moved. I'm still here, rooted. And so this presence, right, developing presence is what allows us to move from that place over and over, right? Wherever I'm grounded is where I'm going to step off from.